Hi, this is Peter Godinas, your host of Your Pivot Journey. On today's interview, I'm interviewing Justin Baker, who is a volleyball referee. And if you're a coach, athlete, or parent watching this, make sure you pay close attention. There are some valuable tips that Justin shares with you that are going to give you the advantage when you play volleyball and when you finally do eventually transition from volleyball to life. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to Justin Baker. Hi, Justin.
Thanks so much for having me on your show. I'm really happy to be here. And yeah, I've been reffing volleyball for 20 years almost now. So it's crazy for me to think at my young age that I could do anything for 20 years in terms of a career. So yeah, I've really enjoyed the process of refereeing volleyball. I've been around the game for a long time as a spectator and as an athlete and as a coach, from the middle school level to the college level, and then like I mentioned, as a referee. So yeah, it's been a great experience.
So Justin, why did you want to become a referee, and especially a volleyball referee?
Great question. I love sports, and I love volleyball's my favorite sport. It's been my favorite sport for a long time, since you and I were playing back in Ventura, all those weekends, with our families. So I really have wanted to stay involved in the game and not just as a spectator. I've had a lot of wonderful experiences in volleyball, and yeah, I got involved with it just to stay involved in the game. I can't, I love refereeing. I love volleyball, and I couldn't imagine not doing it.
As a referee, Justin, what are some of the best attributes that you see out of the coaches and the players and the parents?
It's a great question. Another thing I would say is how do you engage in conversation? And this is so applicable to everything outside of the world of volleyball. We live in a very divisive time in our country. How can you engage in dialogue with those that you maybe have a different opinion from? One of the ways that you do that is to remember that they're a person first. And as a person, as a Christian, I believe that everybody is, created in the image of God. And therefore, their inherent humanity deserves my inherent respect. It's not just coaches and parents that need to be examples, it's teammates too. So be a good example, have integrity, don't lie, and have respect. Have respect for, whether or not you think they got the call right or wrong, or whether or not you like the referee or not. Have respect for the office of referee. I mean, there's times in the business world or in politics where we might not agree with somebody, but there's respect that their title is earned, that has earned them. And so show respect regardless of those personal feelings. And in so doing, the amazing thing is you'll actually be showing yourself a lot more respect than you even thought possible.
So Justin, how do you deal with the high emotions and the drama associated with the game of volleyball?
I have a good example for this. So I was refereeing a quarterfinal match in the Manhattan Beach Open, and I was a lines judge on the match. So this is to move on to Sunday, bigger money in the semis, national TV exposure in the semis. So there's a lot on line for these guys, and the Manhattan Beach Open is the granddaddy of them all, as they say. And so I called a touch I put my signal. I called a touch on match point, and just off the pinky tip, just got it, and the guy just went ballistic. There's no way I touched that ball, just going crazy and, hitting the net. And the referee went with my call, and then the referee said, oh yeah, maybe there was no touch, so we're going to go no touch. And then the other team's going crazy. And then he goes, let's do a replay. And then there's a protest, and the head of the AVP comes over and says, you can't protest the judgment call, Mr. Referee. You need to make a decision. So he ended up going with my call. ended up ending the match on that touch call that I made. And so that was the last match of the day. Fast forward a few hours, my wife and I are going out to dinner in Manhattan Beach, and I see that same player in the restaurant. As I walk in the restaurant, he yells from across the restaurant, "Hey, ref!" So I thought, well, this is going to be interesting. So I didn't want to have a loud yelling conversation over the restaurant. So I went over to his table, and he quietly said to me, "Good call. I touched that ball." And I thought, okay, well, I mean, he's admitting it to me now. That's a good thing. But it would have been so much easier for everybody. It would have been easier for the referee, easier for the fans, easier for the teams, easier for me, easier for everybody, even easier for him if he would have had integrity at the first time and said, "Oh yeah, I did touch that ball, and good call, ref," and just shook hands. It's easier to have integrity when you get caught. Sorry that whatever the example is, right? That is hypothetical in these situations, but it's much says much more about the character of a person if they have integrity the first time.
So, Justin, what are some of the best ways that players, coaches, and parents can actually express their disappointment and their disapproval or disagreement in terms of a call? Can you share those with us?
So in terms of how to handle disappointments or disagreements, I think if we had that same idea of decision versus reaction, most referees are going to allow a little leeway for a reaction. You think of the NBA, you think of how the players get a longer leash in the NBA when they react, right? Typically in the world of volleyball, we give a longer leash in beach volleyball to the reaction of players than maybe we do in indoor volleyball. But the idea is that if it's a reaction, oh man, bummer. Then they go on and they move on and they get ready to play. I don't necessarily need to get involved with that, right? But it's how do they handle, what happens after the reaction? After the reaction, it literally is a decision. They're deciding to engage in conversation with the referee, and how they're deciding to engage with the referee is important.
So, what are some of the responses that are appropriate when a coach or player or parent disagrees?
A great question, Peter. I think of the examples of players, high-level players on the AVP, or Division I coaches who feel like, right or wrong, that they're coaching for their job every game, and there is pressure to win. It's a sports, and that's one of the goals for these coaches and athletes is to win, and I understand that. But again, how do you respond to the pressure, both in the microcosm that is athletics and the macro level of that which is life? There will be times in life and in sports where you either feel like you didn't get a fair shot or you actually didn't get a fair shot. It's going to happen. And it's how we respond to that slight or that perceived slight that has the biggest impact in terms of our ability to be heard and be respected by other people. So the coach that's going ballistic all the time, I'm not swayed at all by that coach or that player, not whatsoever. To have a reasoned and conversation within a reasonable amount of time with a level-headed coach, that goes a lot longer in terms of just the rapport that's built within the match, and in terms of the ability to converse, in general. Sometimes a coach or a player, I'll speak for coaches here, sometimes they just want to be heard. There's no specific question. And so as a referee, I needed to make sure train myself not to be too prepared with an answer. Because if it's not a question, I'm not going to respond, because it's a statement and that person needed to be heard. And so sometimes my response as a referee could be, I hear you, coach. And did we resolve the problem? Did the coach still think it was a double, or still think it was out, or still think it was an center line violation, whatever the call might have been? Maybe he does, but I hear you, coach, can go a long way. In terms of the responses by players or coaches, just remember that, and I remind myself this all the time, especially in high level matches, if it's a CIF final or if it's a big, match on the AVP or whatever, it's just volleyball. It's just volleyball. And is it matter a lot right now in this moment? Absolutely. It matters a lot right now in this moment. My calls matter. Their plays matter. Their coaching decisions matter. Absolutely, it matters. It matters a lot right now. But yet, volleyball and sports in general are so good for what it can teach us in terms of every other aspect of our lives.
Justin, I've never understood this particular concept. How is it that somebody who is 100 feet away from a call actually can make a better call than somebody who's just a few feet away from the actual action? Can you make sense of it all?
That's a great question. One is fans, whether they're parents or just friends or whatever, they probably don't understand the game or the intricacy of the rules as well as they think they do. So I think that's one thing that's really important, is to remember we train for this. We get certified every year. We read our rule books every year. We make sure that we're on top of knowing the latest techniques and that we are in position as much as possible to see every call and to judge every call correctly. That's our goal. I don't know any referee who would ever say they had a perfect match, but we're all striving to get there. And so that's one response is, or one thought that I have is that it's they probably don't know the game as well as they think they do.
Justin, as best you can you tell us the benefit of the winning and losing that's associated with sports, especially in volleyball? What life lessons can we learn from that?
And in terms of your last comment about life, and I agree with you, there are wins and losses. When you go into a job interview, you either get it or you don't. And if you get it, you feel like a winner. And if you don't, you might feel like a loser. I understand that. But life is not a zero-sum game. And sports is not a zero-sum game. And so even though one team wins and the other loses, or the others lose, you still have so many things to learn along the way in the journey in this athletic pursuit and in the interaction with coaches and players and referees. And so same way in life, there's going to be wins and there's going to be losses. It's what you learn along the way on the journey that's going to define you. It's not the wins, it's not the losses that's going to make you better. It's what you take out of that. It's what you learn from that and you glean from that and you put that forward into the next thing. So if somebody listens to this interview, watches us on YouTube, reads this ebook, then and doesn't put any of it into practice, just says that's a nice thing that Peter interviewed a volleyball referee, then that person hasn't gained what they should have gained from this. And what they should have gained is that you can be better. You can do better. You are in charge of your decisions. And so as you are in charge of your decisions, the reactions become less and less extreme. And when you are in charge of your decisions, then you glean so much more from the journey. Thank you, Peter. It's an honor to be here, be on the show with you, and I'm excited to come back in the future and do another one of these.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this interview with volleyball referee Justin Baker. If you like this interview, please subscribe on the button below. If you'd like a copy of Justin Baker's ebook, Key Life Skills from a Volleyball Referee, please click on the link below.